Hello, welcome to our video chunk that is called Literature Review. So in this discussion, we will be discussing about the importance of literature review and how do we write it. The way we are learning it step by step. No, my type of teaching is basically workshop type, and that's why you will be applying after the lecture. What are the steps in terms of writing the literature of your research? So let's proceed. So the purpose of a literature review is to improve the understanding of the research that is being undertaken. So that's the purpose of the literature review, no? To make people understand, no? So that's its purpose. So that's why you have there a lot of studies in the past, and there are lots of findings coming from different authors, of course, in this on the topic that you have chosen to have research on, no? So that's it. Because writing this part requires the organization of your major and secondary concepts, it is important to know the framework of your study. No? So I'll be presenting you a table later on showing you that your objectives, research objectives, or statements of the problems are basically your guide towards writing the literature review or review of related literature. The framework will serve as your guide on how a research can organize the concepts to be discussed in the study. In general, the research may organize the concepts and include only the works of other authors. No? So we have to be very, very particular, guys. No? What's the difference with the difference on writing the introduction and literature? When you talk about writing the related literature or literature review, you're only going to use materials that are findings and results of studies of other authors, no, or other organizations. So when you talk about introduction, it can be both. They are not really cases, but they can also be situationers, no, initial findings and backgrounders, no, of concepts. So they can be both findings and backgrounds, no. But in literature review, there are only findings and results of studies. So sources of literature journals, publication and books, periodicals and new articles are some of the materials we can use, no, to include in the literature review or really RRL or related review of related literature. Okay. What's the difference between concepts on major works, secondary works, comparative literature, and some other concepts about literature? Let's go first with major works and major concepts. The researcher should be able to identify major concepts of the study. In the same level of importance is under identifying the major works of authors supporting the discussion for the major concepts. Of course, the major concepts are these are concepts and variables present in your title already, and you have predetermined this beforehand, no? So you base this, and also these are also concepts you can find in your objectives and research statements of the problems, no? So secondary works supporting the major concepts. The secondary works are resources coming from other authors with related studies. It's used to support the major concepts of the study. They may be identified by placing them as subtopics of the major concepts. No? So later on, you will be seeing some examples of these works. No? So secondary works particularly are uh, discussions under major concepts. No? I mean, you would be able to identify what are major concepts. And of course, sometimes you need to discuss about secondary works because it just directly supports the major concepts. No? And there are needed classifications, categories under the major concepts. So you use secondary works. What is comparative literature? In the literature review, the researcher will have to discuss through comparing the related studies. No? So this may come through analyzing the findings of one author to another on whether they agree or disagree. In this discussion, the author will express how the concepts can help in the direction of the studies. No? For example, in the coping mechanism of students during pandemic, no, in terms of their mental health, maybe there are some coping mechanisms that are dominantly being supported by this author, and another author is not in favor of that. No, so these are some discussions that can be written under comparative literature. No, so you compare ideas coming from two authors. No, so when you compare ideas and without siding them, you tend to tell the audience or the readers that okay, that's the reason why I'm doing the research. I want to be I want to probe, no, or investigate which one is telling the truth. Okay? Because literature, you will use them later on in terms of your discussion. What about review, no? So the purpose why it is called a literature review is basically to review the concepts and the related works from other sources. So review is done in order to clearly understand the study, as well as this is also for the service of the readers who should be updated and clarified with the study, no? So when you make review, you organize concepts, no? You organize concepts, sub-concepts, or secondary sources, as well as comparatives, no? So what is relationship in writing literature review? In this level, there should be an established relationship with the major works and secondary works to demonstrate the discussion of the major concepts. No? So when you make major concepts and secondary concepts place in one page, for example, no, or in one part of your literature review, you have to make sure that the subtopics or the secondary works are related to your major works. No, they support the major concepts. Okay? Purpose. The researcher will now have to assess the value of the literature review and explicitly express what is the importance of the related literature to the study and how it can help in the investigation or probing of the research. So usually, purpose of the study can be placed at the end, can be placed in the beginning because you will express why are you writing or doing literature review, no? So, or both, no? You can do it as an introduction to writing the literature review, or you're going to to do it as a concluding part of your literature review. In my case, I'm using both, no? So that's it. Okay, so these are some of the examples. So you, in this case, there is a general literature review, no, on the difficulties of parents with low educational attainment in assisting their children in modular distance learning during pandemic. So they cite cases and studies by OECD, or the, I think, Organization of Economic Countries. I'm not sure with letter D. Then you also have UNICEF, or United Nations International Children's Educational Fund. I hope I'm right. So it's a situationer in the literature, but these are findings, by the way, and case studies. No? Okay, how do we determine major concepts or major literature? No? So you italicize them. Okay, so these are found in your research objectives or statements of the problem. So you have their modular distance learning experiences of parents with low educational attainment during COVID-19. You also have italicized intellectual difficulties in assisting learners on modular distance learning and the discussion under it. Then you also have the unpreparedness of parents in assuming teaching roles. So these are basically based on the research questions and research objectives, and even based on the instrument you have developed. No? So you also have balancing household roles and academics and the discussion with it, as well as the citations. And you have economic struggles in supporting modular distance learning and the discussion with it. So that you will not be getting lost, you have to italicize all the major concepts, no? So that you won't be doing the same thing all over again, and so that you are able to organize, no, and classify them, so that discussion under those italicized topics are all about that particular italicized topic. You're not switching discussion from first to second or randomly, no? So you have a specific topic for that italicized uh, title of the topic. Okay, so example, if you would notice, before you do your literature review, make an outline. In fact, this outline is based on your research questions or statements of the problems or objectives, no? With the same title on the difficulties of parents. So you have the outline here, no? The 5 outline. So you place the purpose of the literature in the beginning. I mean, you don't have to put them in the outline, or in the end, or both, no? So that's particularly what the outline is for the, excuse me, for the literature review. Okay. So here, just to make a comparison, this is your research statements of the problem. Okay, this is what was used for the statements of the problem. Okay, take a look into this table, no, in blue, green, and pink. women's mental no, the title, so I'm sorry for this. The title is still on the difficulties. So you see this, the objectives of the study, and commensurate to the state research questions or statements of the problems are the appropriate literature review outline. Okay? So each question in the statements of the problems have their corresponding literature review concepts. So that's how you organize your literature review, right? Isn't it very friendly? So if someone is reading your research, they won't get lost. They will be clarified, and you are very very organized with how you write your literature review. No, okay. So for our workshop, please make an outline of your literature review. But what I want you to do is don't make an outline. I mean, that's just your individual strategies within yourself. I want you to submit your literature review. Let's not exceed it by 1 page, no, because we're doing an IMRAD. IMRAD only allows us to submit, at least in most journals for publication, to have not more than 5,000 words, no. So usually introduction is worth 1 page, and literature review is worth 1 page as well. So for 1 page, make the most of it to write your literature review, and you will be submitting it in the reply section of the tab that I will be tagging as labeling as submit your literature review here, and then you will reply with your submissions. Okay, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you will find it easy to do literature review writing, no? So if you have questions, just raise your questions in the tab that I will be using for the workshop, using in the LMS, no? Okay. So I hope I did not forget anything. Okay. Okay. So we will be discussing in the next video about methodology. So I hope you're excited to do it, because now you will be framing how you will gather your data. For now, thank you for listening on Writing Literature Review.